At the illustrious Kennedy Space Center in Florida, the United States National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, held a news conference on the 8th of August, 2023. The occasion represented a critical turning point in the Artemis program, with the attention being placed squarely on the preparations for the Artemis II mission. In the following in-depth description, we will investigate the primary highlights and announcements that were made at the conference that shed light on this arduous lunar trip. 1. An explanation of the Artemis program. The first part of the conference consisted of an overview of the NASA Artemis program, which is an ambitious endeavor with the ultimate goal of sending humans back to the Moon and eventually establishing a permanent presence there. The Space Launch System, SLS, the Orion spacecraft, and the Gateway lunar colony are the primary focuses of the Artemis program's construction efforts. Before the middle of the 2020s, the major objective is to successfully land astronauts, including the first woman and the next man, on the surface of the Moon. 2. The Artemis II mission, also known as the Lunar Flyby mission. The Artemis II mission, also known as the Crewed Test Flight, is the second mission that will be carried out as part of the Artemis program. A crew of astronauts will be aboard the Artemis II spacecraft as it makes a flyby of the Moon, in contrast to the crewless mission that was Artemis I. The objectives of the mission include evaluating the operation of the Orion spacecraft in deep space, conducting a variety of experiments while the spacecraft is orbiting the Moon, and testing the systems and capabilities of the Orion spacecraft. 3. Selection of crew members and training. The revealing of the astronaut crew for the Artemis II mission was one of the most anticipated revelations that took place during the press conference. NASA has presented the crew of experienced astronauts who will have the privilege of steering the Orion spacecraft during its orbital mission around the Moon. The crew is made up of both seasoned space travelers and members of the Artemis generation, which is a fresh group of people interested in exploring space. 4. Recent developments with the Orion spacecraft. The Orion spacecraft, which will play a pivotal role in the Artemis II mission, was the topic of a comprehensive update released by NASA. The design of the spacecraft and its systems were highlighted along with key enhancements and improvements to both. These improvements were made after analyzing the data gathered from thorough testing as well as the experiences gained from Artemis I. The incorporation of sophisticated life support systems is one of the significant upgrades, and it will give the crew with additional autonomy as well as a higher level of comfort while they are on the mission. In addition, the communication systems of the spaceship have been improved to ensure continuous communication with both Earth and the Gateway lunar colony. 5. The Space Launch System, SLS, also known as the launch vehicle. At the meeting, a significant amount of attention was paid to the Space Launch System, SLS, which is NASA's most powerful rocket. The SLS rocket that will be used for Artemis II is currently undergoing final integration and testing at the Kennedy Space Center, according to an announcement made by NASA. Engineers and technicians have been working hard to get the rocket ready for the critical role it will play in propelling the crew of Artemis II into lunar orbit. 6. The integration of the Lunar Gateway. The vital part that the Gateway lunar outpost plays in the Artemis program was another topic that was discussed at the conference. The Gateway will act as a transfer point for lunar missions, offering a stable base for the investigation of the Moon. The fact that NASA has announced that the Artemis II mission would feature significant maneuvers and docking operations with the Gateway demonstrates the organization's dedication to the development of lunar infrastructure. 7. Aims of the scientific community. In addition to the operational and technical components, Artemis II will have a significant focus on the scientific component. During the seminar, several of the scientific experiments and observations that will be carried out by the crew during the lunar flyby were discussed in depth. Experiments like these will help us gain a better knowledge of the geology of the Moon, its connection to Earth, and the possibility for exploiting lunar resources. 8. Cooperation across international boundaries. Within the Artemis program, NASA placed a strong emphasis on the significance of international cooperation. This organization highlighted its cooperation with other space agencies, such as the European Space Agency, ESA, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, and the Russian Federal Space Agency, Roscosmos. These partnerships will make it possible to share knowledge and resources, which will increase the likelihood that lunar exploration will be successful. 9. The timeline and major milestones of the mission. During the course of the presentation, NASA presented an up-to-date timeline for the Artemis II mission, which included important milestones along the path leading up to launch. This schedule incorporates a number of tests, evaluations, and integrated simulations in order to guarantee the mission's success and keep everyone involved safe. 10. Participation of the public and education. The space agency NASA reaffirmed its dedication to fostering public interaction and education. The Artemis program has piqued the interest of people all around the world, and the agency is working to actively involve the public in its activities through the use of educational programs, community outreach events, and media coverage. Students and space aficionados were urged by NASA to monitor the project and take part in educational activities that were connected to it. In conclusion, the press conference that took place on August 8, 2023 at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, hosted by NASA, offered an in-depth look at the preparations that are being made for the Artemis II mission. It served as a demonstration of NASA's commitment to bringing humans back to the Moon and establishing a permanent presence there. This conference represented a critical milestone in that endeavor, and the world is excitedly anticipating the next steps in humanity's journey back to the lunar surface. The Artemis II mission is on the horizon, and the world is anxiously anticipating the next steps. The Artemis program marks a significant turning point in the long-running effort to broaden humankind's comprehension of the cosmos, even as NASA works to push the limits of space travel in the years to come.